Hi everyone, this is Bin Fang from Affinity Migration. Thank you all for listening in. Just before I start, I wanted to say a big thank you to Siri for posting the first question on this group forum. So tonight we'll be going through a presentation in response to the question that was posed. And if you'll give me a minute, I'll just share my screen. There you go. I hope you can all see that. So this presentation is brought to you by Affinity Migration. And just a quick disclaimer, the advice provided in this presentation is general in nature. So please, if you do have very specific circumstances, please do seek the help of a registered migration agent. So the visa that we'll be talking about today is the sponsored family stream. So Siri, thank you very much for your question again. The question that Siri asked was, what are my chances of having family-sponsored tourist visas approved for 6 family members if only myself and my husband are the sponsors? Great question, and it's one that people often ask. So the requirements, I'll talk a little bit about what you need to do in order to satisfy some of the requirements of this visa before, I guess, answering your question at the end. So the first requirement is to have access to financial support during your visit. Immigration often likes to see that if you are coming over on a visitor visa, that you're able to either finance yourself during your time in Australia, or that you have support from family or friends who are more than happy to help you financially. The second thing, which is quite important, is do you have a criminal record? So a criminal record could be something as simple as a parking fine, or it could be something as serious as having been in jail. So all these will be asked by immigration, and you do need to explain what happened and when it happened and what was the outcome of it. The third thing is, are you visiting an Australian resident or citizen? Sometimes, or more and more frequently, what we're seeing is that if you're applying for a visitor visa, especially if you're coming to see a relative, then often you need a letter of invitation. And that is just to, in many ways, give immigration the reassurance that there is someone who you will be staying with, or there is someone who you will be seeing in Australia. And the fourth point is, and this is specific to the family sponsored stream. Now, before I continue, the visitor visas have roughly 4 different streams, and the family sponsored stream is just one of them. There's the tourist stream, the business stream, and there is another one where if you come on a tour group, you apply for that particular one. So the fourth one, are you sponsored by a settled Australian resident or citizen? The word settled is really important because it implies that, are you being sponsored by an Australian permanent resident or citizen who is currently living in Australia and has been living here for at least a period of 12 to 24 months? And is the sponsor a relative? Relative is quite broad. So I'll just read out a few things that define what a relative is. So a relative can be defined as your wife, a child, parent, your sibling, your grandparents, auntie, uncle, niece, or nephew. Now, if you have a step side of the family, I guess, then all those things that I've mentioned, you can add a step in front of it, and they count too. For example, stepchildren, stepbrother, stepsister, step-parent. So they are all considered relative, and relatives can sponsor you for this particular stream of the visa. Has the requested security been lodged? What that pretty much means is that, and again, this is unique to this particular stream, immigration may or may not ask you to lodge a bond. And this bond can range from anywhere between $5,000 to $15,000 per person. Now, why do they do that? Sometimes if they see that someone is potentially high risk, what they will do is they will request that you lodge a bond so that if anything happens, they've got that security. Now, that bond is returned to you in full once the person who is on that visa leaves Australia to return to their home country. So it is quite safe. However, 5,000 to 15,000 per person can be quite a large amount of money. Last but not least, the length of the visa can be granted for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or anything the immigration officer determines to be fair or relevant to your situation. So it can really depend. It also does depend on your immigration history. So if this is your first visa, chances are you'll be granted something that is a little bit shorter. However, if you've been to Australia on 3 or 4, even 5 different visas, then there is a good chance that you will be granted, 12-month multiple entry, and each entry you can stay for a period of 3 months. So it really does depend, and it is up to the immigration officer's discretion. This next thing that I'm going to talk about has become a really important part of visitor visas, and this applies across now all the different streams. So genuine temporary entrant. Essentially, it asks two main questions. Are you a genuine visitor? What are your incentives to return home? So visitor visas were created so that people from overseas can come and visit Australia, see what Australia has to offer in terms of its scenery, lifestyle, things like that, and then return home to their country. What this is trying to prevent is it is trying to prevent people who have come to Australia solely with the intention of overstaying. So to show that you have a genuine incentive to return home would include things such as, do you have a job back home? Do you own assets, such as do you have a house in your home country? Do you still have the majority of your relatives, or do you still have parents that you take care of over there? So there is a long list of things which you can use to prove that you are a genuine visitor and that you are not in Australia for the purposes of overstaying. And this can be written in the form of a letter. Generally, when you're lodging your application, that's what we would do. Now to the most important part, answering the original question. What are the chances of success? The chance of success is really up to immigration, and I do say that because at the end of the day, or you can supply all the information that you think is right, but immigration will make a determination of it, and then it is up to them to either grant or refuse the visa. I guess it matters less how many sponsors you have, but it may matter how, I guess, how financially well off these sponsors are, in terms of, because here you've got 6 people that you're potentially looking to sponsor, so that will play a part. Whereas if it was just a couple sponsoring 1 or 2 people, then your financial wealth may play a lesser role in that situation. So really, in in immigration, it does become a case by case basis when they assess to grant you the visa or to refuse it. However, good news, you can increases your chances of success though, and that is through a well-written genuine temporary entrant letter or whatever form you choose to write it in. Financials, so showing that you are able to sponsor these 6 people and able to, if it is your intention to support them financially during this period that they're seeing you for. And then last but not least, lodgement of a bond. So if immigration asks you to lodge a bond, having lodged a bond with immigration puts their mind at ease. It reassures them that the visa holders will come to Australia and will comply with the rules of the visa because there is a big financial incentive to do so. So this brings us to the end of this, I guess, Q&A session. Thank you very much again for your question. I look forward to many more questions from you and others. I hope this has really shed some light on what it means to sponsor a family on a visitor visa. And if you do have more specific questions, which you don't feel comfortable asking on the group page, please feel free to send me a private message or to email me. Thank you very much for watching.